6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio. Live from the heart of the downtown east side, it's Talk Recovery Radio with Giuseppe Ganci and Darren Gaylor on Vancouver's Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. From the streets to the studio, bringing you addiction recovery stories from real people with lived experience and real experts on today's issues. Tune in live every Thursday, noon to 1. Powered by New West Recovery. Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio.
Good afternoon, Vancouver. Good afternoon, BC. Good afternoon to everybody that's listening. And hello to people that are replaying us on their favorite podcast. I'm Giuseppe Ganci, and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Darren Gaylor. Hey, Darren.
Hey, Giuseppe. Hey, everybody. Welcome to
Hello.
Talk Recovery.
Yeah, welcome to the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, click subscribe and like. And if you're watching us on Facebook, do the same. We're back. You know, we've been off for a bit, just lots of busy schedules. We're getting ready for our huge Recovery Capital Conference that's coming up in February. The show's put on by Last Door, and, really excited. This morning was a really interesting day, Darren. We had a press conference with the leader of the BC Liberal Party. He did a announcement today. His campaign for addiction is going to be a recovery-oriented response to addiction and mental health issues. So that's really exciting. So that was fun being part of that.
Nice. And you were having fun on the news the other night.
Darren, I got interviewed by Israeli TV, Global TV, CBC TV. What's the other one? There's a CTV Global. Anyway, a bunch of them. The Israeli one was a lot of fun. I don't know what's going on there with that picture, but anyway, the Israeli one was super fun. Well, no, I shouldn't have said that actually.
I was gonna say.
It was interesting because I got to listen to the beginning of, like, right before I was on, and it was all about bombings and everything. I'm like, oh my God, like they're just like talking about it like, regular news today. There was this bombing and then there was another bombing, and I'm just like, this is like regular news. And then my segment, and then right after my segment goes, how much sex is too much sex? And then homosexuality in Israel, and then it just stopped. And I was like, I want to listen to this. I'm like, don't stop. I'm like, where do I find? It was just such a rando, like 10 minutes of airtime. I was like, what is
just covering
here?
everything in there, right?
Yeah, definitely. It was pretty wild. But yes, Darren, decriminalization is in British Columbia now.
As our overdose rates keep going up, I mean, we've talked about it too much, like let's see, let's be optimistic. Let's see how decriminalization will lessen the overdose crisis, and we'll just wait it out another couple of years.
Darren, no. I mean, for a province that follows evidence-based, I mean, the weaponized word evidence-based, evidence is already there. Decriminalization without proper procedures to help people find recovery or have better health, and I'm not talking about going to meetings for the rest of your life, I'm just talking about better health, doesn't work. It actually worsens. Portland's been doing it for years. A bunch of my friends just went to Portland to go watch a game. They said downtown is just destroyed. It's proven. I mean, Portuguese model is not decriminalization. Portuguese model is prevention, decriminalization, and treatment, and they're all tied in together. And it's just, we've been saying this on our show forever. The fact that the government has gone decrim without a proper response plan to addiction, which is a recovery response. I didn't say it on the media, but the bigger channels, because it's irresponsible. Like, it's completely irresponsible. You know what the Portuguese model is. It's like, okay, so in Portugal, you get tickets, you get summons, you go to this quasi-court system, which is made up of healthcare professionals, you get assessed. And we're talking about like starting at 16, 17-year-olds. They make sure you don't become that street entrenched drug user down the street that you see. Oh, that's cool. But so we're just gonna do decrim. Thanks. And they just walked out of the room, right? So I'm just gonna there we go. So anyway, everybody, my rant if you've followed the show. If you haven't followed the show, the quick soundbite is it has been said by people that run decrimmed countries like Portugal, Dr. Galau, decriminalization would never have worked in Portugal if we didn't have the Commission of Drug Dissuasion. Portugal has hardly any overdoses, and they got pretty good heroin over there. Hardly any overdoses, but here's the catch. They have no market for fentanyl because they've done this prevention program there for 20 years. Here we have a market for it and people are addicted to it. So anyway, that's my talk. If you want to learn more, you can go to my Facebook page and you can watch the interviews that were done on the different channels. So Darren, that's just what I meant. It's just like, I mean, how many of our friends are dead? And we're just going to be like, yeah, let's see how it works. Like
Well,
my
that
friends aren't rats. Like we're not
yeah.
rats in a laboratory. Let's just see if it works. It's like there's already proof that it does work in other countries. This is how they did it.
hmm
So Giuseppe Ganci, Darren Gaylor on Talk Recovery Radio. Also, you can replay us on all your favorite streams. We talk about addiction and recovery issues on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. Big shout out to them. Shout out to Jordan, who books our guests and helps us get our guests on our show. If you want to be on our show, email jordan@lastdoor.org. And if you have a topic, you have a book, you have an opinion, we love them. You have a personal story. Let us know. We're always looking for people to be on our show. I am going to add our guest to the room. And Darren, who do we get to talk recovery with today?
Yeah, we get to talk recovery with Dré Gail, Riley Mayton. Welcome to the show, guys. They're both people in long-term recovery working in the tattoo industry. Dré, aka Dré Gail, aka Babydoll, is the owner of Babydoll Tattoos. Riley is the artist as well, working at Babydoll Tattoos. We're going to have a conversation of personal stories, inspiration, making it work, coming from nothing to something, all of that good stuff. But we always like to go into the dirt first because it doesn't mean anything without the dirt, it makes it extra special with a little of the dirt. So, a little background, Riley, why don't we start with you, because we're here to talk about, not just, beyond just being a tattoo artist in a tattoo shop. Why is it so important? And so let's start off with where did it all come from? Like, what was it like for you, pal?
Well, it was like slow beginnings for sure. I was definitely like an artist for like many years of my life. That's what I did with my spare time. I always enjoyed art, excelled at it, and it got to the point where like I started messing around with drugs and alcohol and hanging around bad people, and I started putting that first before anything, and I kind of put art on the back burner. I still kind of did it in my spare time here and there, but like really like the drugs and alcohol had like started to take full force. I struggled with drugs and alcohol for a really long time. It was all through school, into my work life as a young adult. It was the number one priority, and it took everything from me. Like I lost friendships. I ruined relationships with family members. I lost jobs, lost housing. And, I tried all the different things, like try a different drug, try and hang out with different people, try and move away. But, the addict in me was still full force, and I wasn't dealing with, the problem at hand. I was just sweeping it under the rug. And so after, I think it was 2019, I got word from a girl in Saskatchewan that I had got her pregnant, and I kept telling myself so many times that now's the time to make a change. Like I'll stop before the baby's born. I'll quit all this. I have a good reason, and that the timer just kept ticking down, and it got to the point where like my baby was born and I was still an IV drug user, homeless on the street, walking around with my tattoo machine in a backpack, and like, tattooing had kind of come, during my addiction, which was, I guess you could call it a gift that came from all this misery. But yeah, that's how I provided for myself. I just go to people's houses and slang tattoos really shadily and, as safe as I could, but still not safe. And I did whatever I could to make ends meet and get my drugs and get my fix and stay high another day. But, it got to the point where like everything in my life was just so derelict, and I had no more will to keep going. Until I saw my kid was born, and I realized that like if I kept doing what I was going to be doing, I was going to end up like, the dictionary definition of a deadbeat dad, and I just kept thinking about Savannah, the baby mom, saying, like, well, where's, like, if Elias was asking her like, hey, where's my dad? It's like, oh, he died because, he was addicted to drugs and he just couldn't stop. That hurt more than anything that happened to me in my addiction. That was the hope I found, and the desperation thinking about that.
I mean, they often talk about the bottom, right? The realization, could it have gotten worse? Absolutely. But it's so nice to hear of the, what was probably a childhood passion, drawing and art, become the thing that you get and you're using for means and ways of scoring dope, and now to see you guys in a tattoo shop, like that's the whole point of this, conversation and your guys' story. So, we'll stop there and ask, later, like really what it took to, to after that decision or after that realization came about. Dré, what about you? I mean, what's the background of your life here?
So I also grew up with art being a really crucial part of my life. I actually grew up in a really conservative household, and tattoos was never something, I barely even knew what they were growing up. But we weren't allowed TV growing up. We weren't allowed Nintendo. We were given art and music as ways to, entertain ourselves, basically. And, I played violin, I did sports, like we got straight A's. That was 100% expected of us. And within that, art was the thing where I was able to kind of more explore like creativity and stuff, because the other things were still very rigid. So it was always just something that was very encouraged until I actually got a little bit older and wanted to pursue it in school. And that was like, oh, no, like that's not like a real job. So my issues with drugs and alcohol came later in life, kind of, as compared to a lot of people. I first struggled with, I was anorexic for 15 years. And, that was all tied to this, this kind of like suppression of, it's very, very similar. Like the thing is like, I've learned it's so connected with the use of drugs and alcohol too, right? A suppression of your feelings, but also for me, it was like a suppression of who I was. And when I was, when I became a teenager, I I was trying to push more boundaries, within the life I had. And, art was still kind of like the safe place for that. The drugs and alcohol really came into play after I actually went to treatment for the eating disorder. And then I went to the US for that. And then I came back home and I was like, well, I don't have that anymore. So why don't we try this other thing? And, speaking of like honestly, like rock bottom is like, what was interesting is I kind of was already at a rock bottom when I picked up, and like, particularly when I picked up hard drugs, I kind of was at a point where I already didn't care. And I kind of already knew what the reality of, treatment and, the cycle was. But what I think about like, like the idea of like, do I regret anything that's happened? And particularly around, really like going heavy into addiction, I can't regret it because it was very hand in hand with me still learning to push more boundaries and like find myself a lot and explore a world that was very foreign to me that I was attracted to. And obviously some of the ways were healthier than others, but I got like heavily involved with like a lot of other artists, like in the East Vancouver music scene, and like shows and like the punk rock lifestyle and pushing boundaries with appearance in ways that I'd always wanted to. And I actually found what was surprising was that it actually, in terms of my body image issues, I'd had this exerting control over my body with modifications, with tattoos, with piercings and stuff. It was very soothing. But unfortunately, where I had friends that were, in bands and stuff, and they could like do hard drugs on the weekend and then clean up and go to work on Monday, I was not in that scenario. So it was, it was a really fast tailspin. And, my point of heading to treatment was when I'm, as much as I had issues with my family based on, the stringency I grew up with and not feeling like I was able to express myself, I do respect them and I am very close to my family. I have a big family. So, when they really put their foot down, I took the opportunity to go to treatment. Didn't work that first time because it wasn't for myself. But I did it again in 2014. And, I would like to say that's kind of where it, leveled out. But in particular, in terms of just the piece of art is, like Riley said, like I'd lost my actual practice of art in addiction. Obviously, I was feeling like I was being exposed to, other artistic avenues, but I wasn't drawing. I wasn't doing this thing I loved anymore. It was, I honestly didn't even know if I could draw anymore. And that came back when I actually made the horrendous mistake of, in 2014, picking up a very abusive relationship at the treatment center that I was at. And in spite of, I did stay clean, but for the first 18 months I was clean, I lived with somebody who was IV using in my house, taking over my life entirely. And I reached back out to my art because it was, the only things I had in my mind that he couldn't take from me was I had my art and I had my clean time. And they were really tied together, that I was like, he can take everything. He can take my money. He can take, pretty much my dignity at that point. But I was like, he can't take my art and he can't take my clean time. And I just leaned into them. So, yeah.
Well, we all learn on our own little paths, don't we? I mean, they say you can't work everything out all at once. So you kind of go through the bumps and work it out along the way. I mean, one thing, I've noticed, or, in my own experience, or talking with other people that have maybe a gift for for art of some sort, be it music or whatever, it's always defined in the beginning as sort of like it was an escape. And I don't know whether or not that's healthy. Like maybe as a child who's, you know, trying to figure out relationships and you know, parents are weird, lifestyles, you know, they're confused, that it's maybe considered a healthy thing, you know, to be able to focus on something and be creative. But then it has an element of like, there's something for that individual to work on if they need to escape. Like, is there any experience in, you know, let's say if we were talking to a child that's very expressive in their art and very talented and gifted, is there a worry or concern that they're using it as an escape? And how do we identify that?
I think that is the key point, because like art is a very, very healthy form of expression. It's, you know, like when it comes to, you know, feelings or whatever situations and stuff, like it's more of like, it's an adaptive coping mechanism versus maladaptive. But at the same time, I think the point that you make is what are you trying to escape from? And also like looking at the compulsion to escape, because like for me, it was one of my compulsions to escape. And you know, I just over the course of my life just kept breeding more and more and more of those, some of them more healthier than others. But, you know, if I had even known that predisposition to like searching for something that was like, you know, self-soothing, an escape, expressive, you know, something to throw myself into like that, I feel like it's almost good information to have in terms of being like aware of where that behavior can shift as you get older. So.
Totally. I mean, hey, what about you, Riley? Like, I mean, the guy that like carried around his tattoo gun, continuing to do work for, you know, as sketchy as it might have been. Like, did you find when you got clean, did you feel like you needed to put that down and grasp some insight and do personal work? Or did you feel like a need to get into it? Like, you know, to escape in that sense? Or what was the process for you coming back into your art in a healthier way?
Well, I think like for me personally, like the healthiest approach that I took was like do a full set of steps and like already start doing some work on myself, because like for sure like it can be an avenue or a distraction away from like the true problem. But I would say like if you put those two things together, like recovery and art, like I think if you are passionate about it, I don't think you should like take a passion away from somebody, right? Like I know now after doing a set of steps that like after that first set of steps that like I needed to do that first before I could do anything else that I cared about in my life, you know, like family, work, all these responsibilities of life that we have, like that was all on the back burner because I needed to take care what was in here and up here, and I needed to sort that stuff out first. But like once I had like, you know, had a better grasp on like my emotions and why I was doing the things I was doing and trying to, you know, make changes in my behavior, that's when I could really focus a lot of my time and energy into something that made me truly happy. And I did it for a whole year. You know, I quit my job. I just said, I'm doing this because this makes me happy. One of the guys that worked at the treatment center that I went to, I had a conversation with him. And I was like, yeah, I kind of want to do tattooing like when I get out of here. But like my plan was to leave and go work with a family business. And he's like, well, you know, man, like people that make it in those types of industries, like they whole ass it. They're not like 1 foot in kind of doing it. It's like they do it because they're going for broke, because there's nothing else to fall back on. It's this or nothing. And I was like, I think I need that for myself. I need to put everything, every inch of my body and soul into what I'm passionate about, or else like, what's the point?
And you know what you said there is just so powerful about putting everything aside first. Because I mean, everybody in this Zoom and on this show right now have all been through this. Show up to rehab, show up to recovery. It's like, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this. And you know, you hear new people do that and you're like, oh boy, here we go. It's just like, because so many people think addiction is about the drug use, and really I mean, that's a big piece of it, obviously, but it's a lack of gratitude, lack of respect, a lack of morals, lack of dignity, you know, all of that comes along with it. So, you know, I know Riley's been in groups where it says you're going to get everything you want and you're going to destroy it if you don't have that recovery in you, because, you know, all the stuffs that you're lacking, you know, that step 6 and step 7. So, you know, I'm just glad that you said that, because if anybody's listening or watching, you know, and you're just having a tough time in your life, it's not just about the drug use, it's about everything else. And take that break. I mean, everybody's trying to do that quick fix, and it's like, there is no quick fix. I mean, like you said, multiple sets of steps. Like, you didn't just show up one day, get well. You know, it's not like I got to fix my broken arm and there's a period on it and then it's fixed. It's like, no, it takes forever. So getting into business, you know, like that's something that, so tell us about Babydoll Tattoos first of all. So where is it, and all that kind of stuff, and then also, like, how did the two of you meet and create this business as well?
So Babydoll Tattoos currently is, we are in North Burnaby, on Hastings Street. I like to specify the good Hastings Street, that is.
Okay.
Part of Hastings. Yeah, we've got a full walk-in shop here now, and there's 4 artists here currently. I've owned Babydoll Tattoos as a company since early 2017. Honestly, the funny thing is it really happened by accident. Me tattooing happened by accident. Started that I was, after I'd left that relationship, come back home, I was living with my parents, my very conservative parents in North Van. And they said, as long as we're remotely financially contributing to your life, you can't get tattoos, because they were like, they found the loophole that they were like, you know, that way they weren't suppressing who I was, but they were like, if you're going to spend money on that and we're giving you money, that doesn't add up. So
Yeah.
I figured out the loophole that, what if I just tattoo myself? So purchased a starter kit online because I was too embarrassed to actually go and walk into the supplier, because, you know, a little bit less so today, but even, you know, 7 years ago, it was, you know, it was very taboo to be like self-taught basement artists, they called it. So under the cloak of darkness, at the middle of the night when my parents were asleep, I'd like give it a whirl. And but developing it into a business was like, it was so intertwined for me with recovery, because it actually was that I was introduced by a friend to the community of New West when I was 3 years clean, and I had just started playing around with tattooing. And honestly, it became that, you know, like one person was like, hey, like, I heard you tattooed. And let's be real, people in recovery love a cheap tattoo. Whether it's good, they don't entirely care as much about usually. But it was like, you know, and the thing was, is I did have some confidence because I had the artistic background. And I think Riley can agree that learning to tattoo is a lot easier when you have a very strong understanding of art, and like, not just like, oh, I'm artistic, like a strong technical fundamental understanding of art. It really, if you approach it like a medium change, it is it's a lot less daunting. Yeah, exactly. So one person in recovery became 2 people in recovery I was tattooing. And then it became enough people that I'm a total like worrywart. So I was like, oh my God, I need to have like a license. Like, I was so worried I was going to like screw up and get sued. So I found a little office space that had a sink in it, because that was the requirements of Fraser Health. And I researched everything I needed, and I got this tiny little room licensed and insured so that I at least had my ass covered. That was also the big requirement of my parents once they caught wind of this, is they said, you know, make sure your ass is covered. And it just slowly, slightly multiplied, but it was entirely at first ingrained in recovery because it was the recovery community. Like, we support our own. It was them who supported me. I only had the opportunity. I mean, I only picked up a tattoo machine because I was in recovery. Because a big part of it too is like recovery gave me the confidence and like the self-worth to believe in myself enough to pick something up that was completely foreign to everything that I'd ever experienced. And, people would be like, oh, well, like, was this always your dream? And I'm like, it wasn't even on my radar as a dream because it was just something that was so outside of, of what I was exposed to. But I picked up on it. I absolutely loved it. I also realized that I was like, wow, it's a lot easier to achieve something when you're clean and you have a lot more time on your hands. You're a lot more aware. You're able to focus better. Your brain works better. But
I have a question. You brought up your parents a few times. I have a question about that. So what do you say to people out there that have this similar situation? Oops.
Yeah.
So what happens when you have parents that don't really want to support the lifestyle that you're choosing? How did you use recovery to get through that? Like, we all have mommy stories, mommy and daddy stories. So how did you get through that? Because that's pretty severe, like straight A student, all this happens to you're didn't even watch TV and you still became a drug addict and or an alcoholic or whatever it was,
So
like how you know what I mean? Like it's just like every parent's dream of a child, straight A students, all this stuff, and this is what happens to them. So there must have been disappointment, maybe, if that's the right word. How did you all get through that?
Well, I mean, I think that first off, the big thing I learned was that addiction and mental health issues do not discriminate whatever your status in life is or your upbringing. That was something I really wasn't even aware of, but I was like, anyone will, no matter where you come from, we will end up in the same place. If you're an addict, you're going to end up in the same place. And, that is, like Riley said, like, homeless and alone, basically.
Did you have resentments to your parents, or?
I definitely did, because like I said, I think for me, the biggest piece of resentment actually stemmed more from the fact that I do love and respect my parents. And everyone used to say to me, well, just, forget what they have to say, do your own thing, just go for it. And I couldn't really do that because I did respect them. I did respect their opinions and I did value our relationship. So I didn't want to just, run off and go do my own thing and burn that bridge and, and do it all on my own. I wanted them to be a part of it. And that involved, first of all, a lot of time. It took a long time. I had to let them come around to it in their own way. Not gonna lie, actually becoming a tattoo artist as a career helped them understand me a little bit more. Also, I found another loophole in their logic. Their big thing was they're never gonna have a job.
Got one now. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I think the big thing that I spent hours like sitting in a therapy room with a counselor and my dad, trying to get him to understand that me having a blue mohawk had no impact on my value as his child.
That's beautiful.
That's
nice.
You
had a blue mohawk?
I had a blue mohawk. Yes.
Oh my God, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that. Darren, I know you got questions, Darren. I got one more for Dré, and then you can take over, Darren. And this is for Riley. So you went from a backpack tattoo artist, and the funny, like, who would ask you to do their tattoo from a homeless guy with a backpack? But that happened. What was it like the moment you're like, okay, done treatment, like life's going, you got your license, you went from backpack tattoo artist to like in a shop, like working. What was that like for you? And like, how was that moment when you had that realization, like, I think I made it?
Well, like personally right now, I don't think I've made it. I
Okay.
humbly would say that I'm still striving to be the artist that I want to be, and like have the following, and make a name for myself in this industry. I'm very green at the moment, but I'm still willing to like learn and fail and progress as an artist. But it was interesting. Like I was tattooing out of my house, clean, after treatment, and I was tattooing people in the community, friends that were just supportive. And then, I got an opportunity. It was actually at a recovery event, where I had met Dré, and I saw that she had posted on Facebook that she was looking for a guest spot artist. And I was like, well, I better shoot my shot. So I talked to her there, and I was like, hey, like maybe I can like send you my portfolio, and maybe I can like work there for a little bit. I have a little bit of a client basis, nothing crazy. And she was like, yeah, sure, I'll give you a chance. And she had already, funny enough, she had seen my work come into her shop, and she touched it up. So she had an idea of where I was as an artist, and it really came down to like I was lacking a proper environment to progress, because it's night and day tattooing out of a home, rather than a shop. You can see the difference. But
When I saw the tattoo that came in that I fixed of his, I was like, damn, like this kid does know what he's doing. And I asked the person, I was like, was this done on a couch? And he was like, yeah. And I was like,
You're familiar with that.
depth and tension.
Yeah.
That was the thing, is that
Yeah.
I was like, this actually would be a very well executed tattoo if it was basically done on a solid surface rather than a couch.
Yeah. So yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So then once I got that opportunity, I fucking put everything into it, because it was like a Hail Mary. Like it was like, this is an opportunity and I cannot pass it up. Like I'm clean. These are the gifts of recovery that people are talking about. This is my gift right now. This is the thing that's going to make me happy and support me for the rest of my life. And me and Dré hit it off. I just was helpful and tried my best, and always showed up to work with a smile on my face and willing to try. And I've been here for what, like a little over a year, I guess. Year and a half. Yeah. So I've been a year and a half, and like even just the progression from then till now is like tremendous. Like people tell me all the time, they're like, man, I remember when you tattooed me in your house, like to where you are now. Like be proud of yourself. Like you've put the work in. And it's kind of, it's funny, like the parallels to recovery. Like you get what you put into it. Like when you put a whole bunch of effort into your recovery, like you're gonna get what comes with that. It's the same thing with art. If you put a whole bunch of time into honing your skills and your craft, that you are gonna see the results like right in front of you. Like you can tell if somebody's like not working the program. They maybe haven't finished that step 9, and they're still sitting in those defects. Like you can see when people aren't working the program. You can see the people that are living it and that are like truly working it to your core.
Yeah, and I'm sure, Riley, just to continue with that thought, like as you're making this decision to, as recovery would inspire you to admit, I need some work. Thank you for tweaking my tattoo, rather than, how dare you, you know what I mean? Like that would suggest a process, a beginning of a process. And I wonder, like, in relationship to your baby boy.
Yeah.
Did you feel like this is going to take away from my ability to provide quicker, when you had the family business to go back to? What was the decision like for that? And how does it include your boy?
Well, so what happened, like thanks to recovery, like I was able to like get some skills on how to co-parent properly. So me and the mother have a really good relationship. I'm very honest with her, and she's very understanding of like where I'm at and like what my recovery means. And like before I made that that leap, I had a conversation with her, and I was like, I'm gonna go for this. I want to do this, and I might not be able to make child support payments for a few months. Like I will pay what I can, but there's no guarantee. And she's like, that's okay. I just want you to be alive. That's the big kicker. She just didn't want our kid to not have a father. And if that meant like, I'm, following my passion and that it comes around, that was all fine by her. So I was blessed that she was super understanding, and her family is like really big into art. She's really big into art. Her dad tattoos. I actually got a chance to tattoo her when I went to go visit my kid after treatment, which was super cool. And these are all just gifts, and I'm just happy that like I had the understanding that like, this is what I needed to do for myself, and that knowing that like I have the integrity to make up for lost time. At least I'm here for the foreseeable future, rather than like, well, I don't know if he's going to wake up today.
No doubt, man. I mean, it's such a cool story, for those of us that are getting clean and have all these responsibilities. I mean, not to say that, for our recovery, we need to just follow our passions, but just to know that with a little humility and conversation, that, it might work out, just that you can do a little of both, and I mean, to have, somebody like Dré, describing her life into having an actual tattoo shop. I mean, it just seems like a really cool story, to talk about and to share. And, I wonder, Dré, like, just going back to, whether it was an act of rebellion in the basement there, I guess you're going to have some sort of submission that this tattoo I'm about to do could probably tell me that I'm not for this. I'm no tattoo artist. Like it could have gone the other way, right? And just had this massive regret on your thigh.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
I'm not saying I don't.
Well, that's my question. Like, what was the inspiration to the mess that you made, or the like complete, shock and self-inspired work of art that was made? Like what was it at the time?
I mean, I think the thing is like similar to Riley, like it was a huge piece of it was I wanted to do this. And I actually tattooing is the only thing that I've ever felt like I felt like I knew how to do it before I ever picked up a machine. Like it felt like something that I could do. And I did pick up on it quite quickly. But I wanted it. And it is about, I have dedicated my entire life since that moment to this. I have a lot of friends that don't understand, they think I can make my own schedule, but I'm like, well, actually it's kind of the opposite. It just means I have to work all the time. It's a treadmill you can't get off, but it is very similar to recovery in that way. But it was for me, tattoos also, it's the risk of me tattooing myself also was that how could I ever ask anyone else to want me to tattoo them if I'm not willing to tattoo myself? And that is, again, it's a bit of a taboo thing in tattooing. It's something that pretty much everyone does and they don't really want to talk about having done. But, I'm like, if I'm asking other people to permanently hand over their bodies, why shouldn't I do it? But I had my passion for it too came from the fact that I really wanted to tattoo over over scar tissue and like self-harm scars, because I had this, within it being a lack of like a act of rebellion for me, the tattoos and everything was like, it was a way that my body for me finally felt like home. And that was something that I'd never experienced in my whole life. and I tried to find in a very unhealthy way. So I had the passion that I was like, I want other people to experience this. I want other people to understand and experience what a tattoo can do for you. And I was determined. And, you know, there's definitely like mess ups that, you know, I've done on myself. As you know, I think Riley and I can both admit that not every tattoo also too that we've done on other people is what we would have liked it to turn out. There's also a lot of factors, you know, and you know, like I also too, like I'm in a unique position that even though I've owned the shop this long and stuff, I'm still considered like I have less than 10 years experience tattooing, and that's actually still considered pretty new in the tattoo world. Right. So, you know, it's just most people aren't, you know, don't, because it was just me working, it was just me. And then it was like, I brought in other people, and bringing in other people too was tied to recovery. That's what made me comfortable sharing something that was so close to my heart as well. Babydoll Tattoos is my child. It is my everything. Yeah. So I felt a lot more comfortable bringing people in to it from recovery, because we also are in an industry where it's not necessarily recovery geared. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to work on my own, and I made my own environment, my own business to tattoo in, is that I valued my recovery, and I was not willing to go put myself in a shop environment where I felt like that was at risk. And, you know, we've together, we have continued to nurture that. We're not strictly a recovery tattoo shop. I say we're recovery oriented, but I appreciate the relationship that I can have with artists through us being in recovery together, because we also speak the same language in terms of integrity and how you're going to act in business. But the other thing too that I wanted to say is that, you know, like my recovery, my clean time, my business, they're both two things that, like, you know, they didn't happen by accident. Like, they both happened by putting my all into it and valuing it over anything else. And through doing recovery properly, I have the confidence that I know that, like, sometimes my business and the shop and the life feels like a fleeting dream that's just going to crumble one day. But I'm like, it's not, because I'm like, recovery is the foundation of it. And that is a strong foundation. So
it's huge. And I mean, to imagine, to, like, you know, give credit to this thing we call recovery, and just provide, you know, just inclusive for other people who, you know, fall under that category as well. I think it's a ripoff. I think it's counterproductive, because of just people in general in all walks of life, when they meet, when they're just going for a tattoo or wherever they're going, and have a story, and someone that's able to, you know, to share a life story of, you know, like what your guys are examples of. I mean, the benefit, like, I just know people that after I've talked to them and they're kind of like, oh, you come from that and you've done this. It makes a vulnerable, intimate bond there. And I think everybody benefits from that. Like, it shouldn't be just people in recovery that need to go see somebody in recovery.
No, absolutely. And you know, when I say recovery oriented, I mostly mean that it's like, I like to think of us as, like, obviously there's no drugs and alcohol, which is something that, again, you will run into a lot in tattoo shops. You know, a lot of them are raising standards, but it still can happen.
Yeah.
But it's a big piece of it is that I want us to be a safe environment, because quite often, more often than not, tattoos, people wanting to get tattoos, tattoo ideas, the whole process is coming from a place. It's something that people who have heavy pasts or have trauma or, you know, just have life, basically. Like, it's something that they're drawn to. And it's like, you know, Riley and I sit here and we'll be talking to each other while we're tattooing about our experience, about the things we've done, you know, our trauma bonding jokes and stuff. And it encourages this, like, comfortable environment where then people are like, well, here, I'll tell you about why I'm getting this tattoo. I'll tell you about the hard
Exactly.
And it's like, we joke that we're like, we should get paid for doing therapy as well, because that's what it becomes. But it is so tightly wound into the process of like how you picked your tattoo, what you're getting, why you're getting it. So it makes sense, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's still an industry that's under the, the rock and roll, kind of lifestyle, like, and I mean, I know for me, and, even in comparison to like riding a motorbike, I can't stand going to a shop where the guy might have the best credibility and the best reputation of working on bikes, but he's a biker and he's like, meh, and it's just like, I want a guy that I can talk to, like, that's not going to look at me like I'm some chump because I don't have a big long beard or, Dayton boots. Like, and so I often,
Nothing wrong with Dayton boots, just
no,
saying.
I have a pair. I'm just saying, I don't want to feel obligated to wear them because I'm going to the shop. You know what I mean? Like, there is a factor, and I think it's it's beneficial business and personally to be like an open book, because it's more inviting, and especially this is an intimidating world. I'm scared going to get my first tattoo, right?
Well, and that's the thing too, and that's probably like my number one thing with the way I've built the shop in terms of representation, and that I ask of the people that are working here, to share that representation, is that I'm uncomfortable going into a lot of tattoo shops. I'm an artist and owner. I've got a lot of tattoos. They're a very intimidating environment.
Yeah.
I used to be a hairstylist, and in that there's all this customer service. You treat your clients well, you bend over backwards, and they're investing half of the money that they're investing into tattoos.
Right.
So in general, I always wanted us to be an approachable, comfortable, professional environment where all demographics of people too are comfortable coming here, because it's not just, punk rockers and bikers that are getting tattoos now. It's all different groups of people. So, I want us, all the way from like us as who we are and how we conduct ourselves to the environment, the physical environment. Like, we want to, be inclusive and, inviting, because it's an industry that has some really rough edges.
And it makes a difference. Like, I've heard back from so many clients, the reason they come back is because it feels more like they're just hanging out at home rather than they're like going somewhere and doing something where they don't feel comfortable. Like, this is the environment that like Dré, I think, wanted to portray with Babydoll Tattoos, is that like this is like somewhere where you can just walk in, feel comfortable, and not feel like you're judged or that you need to like meet some expectation, and you can just be yourself. And I think that also is the reason why it opens up so many of these extremely vulnerable conversations, is because we created an environment that makes you feel comfortable, makes you feel like you want to share your stories, and that's pretty cool.
Well, and from a business, actually, just like an economical standpoint too, my thing as well, because like I grew up in a family with business owners, and the thing that I'd always learned as well was that, everyone, like, there's so many people that can do something, there's so many people that can provide a service. It's how you provide it that is going to make the difference. And when I started tattooing, and I was like, I barely knew how to tattoo, but I was like, if I can get this person to come back to me because they enjoyed spending that time with me and they enjoy this experience, that's going to bring people back. That's what the edge up is when you're, there's 1,000, learning tattoo artists. It's like, what is going to set you apart? And like, for us, it's that people like us. And, it sounds, I feel like it kind of sounds like egotistical, but I mean it more in that we are genuine with people. And like, I, as a personal, in a personal sense, that's valuable. But the thing that you may not think about is that from an actual like business perspective, it is also a very valuable tool, because it's great for business, but it's also great for having, like, I'm so fortunate that I can have people like Riley who work here, who I know that they care about this shop as much as I do.
It's amazing. I mean, knowing your target market and creating one is a big piece of the business, and it's a good opportunity. And there's so many people in recovery looking to. It's almost like directory for different communities. The LGBT, they support each other. Everyone's looking to support their own kind to help move people forward, and it's great. I mean, I think it's a great opportunity that the recovery community is supporting you as well. And yeah, there are tattoo shops, no problem with them having liquor on site. I don't know what the laws are, but if you want to have a couple of drinks before you get a tattoo, go right ahead. But there should be spaces too where people can get tattoos, but don't.
do that.
From an
Yeah, well,
standpoint, it's actually really not suggested anyways. So
okay, all right, okay. Well, I'm just I get it from the movies. I have no tattoos, so
He has no
yeah,
tattoos.
yeah,
He
yeah. I
doesn't
have no
know.
tattoos. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, yeah. It's anyway. I guess it's a dream. Yeah. So you're listening to Talk Recovery Radio. We're running out of time. So one more time, where's your website and Facebook and Instagram?
www.babydolltattoos.com. We've just got a new website up. Through that, you can find all of our individual social media. I'm at Babydoll Tats on Instagram and Facebook. Riley is
At Good Scum.
But again, the links for all of our portfolios, a little bit about us more, and our links to our social media are all available through the website as well. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Support Babydoll Tattoos. And if you got straight A's, it means you're a perfect candidate to be a tattoo artist. And Darren, always good to see you.
Yeah,
And,
thanks a lot,
yeah,
guys.
Thanks a lot. We'll see you next Thursday. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. To catch all the replays of our show, go to talkrecoveryradio.com. Take care, everybody.
thanks.
Bye.